Welcome to the Pure Performance Cafe. May I take your order?
Yes, I would like a shot of Pure Performance, please.
Coming right up.
Welcome to another episode of Pure Performance Cafe. Today I'm actually in Krakow at Devoxx, and I just bumped into two of the speakers. Unfortunately, I missed your talk, but when we started talking about how it was, you mentioned something very interesting, which is security by design. Now, before we jump into this topic, maybe a quick round of introduction on who you are, name, and then also I know you said you are writing a book. So maybe let's start on my left side here.
Yes, my name is Daniel Deogun. I'm a consultant at Omega Point in Stockholm, Sweden, and I'm writing the book Secure by Design.
Yeah, my name is Daniel Sawano. I work as a senior software engineer at a company called Avanza Bank, which is a stockbroker in Sweden, in Stockholm.
Cool. So we are at the developer conference here, right? And you said security by design, and we just in conversation you said it's a little hard to make security sexy enough for developers. So tell me, security by design, what should people know about and what is this all about?
Well, the gist of it is that by focusing on good design principles, good ways of building software, that tends to be very interesting for the normal developer. And security isn't really that interesting. And by focusing on design and good design patterns that gives you security as a benefit, we can actually help the entire community as a whole.
Exactly. So if you're a developer and you're designing some kind of software or architecture and you're choosing between one pattern and another design pattern, if we can say that, hey, if you choose this design pattern, you can get a couple of security benefits, then you should choose that. And then we believe it becomes more attainable for the average developer that is not primarily a security developer.
Yeah, and so how would developers then find out about these patterns? Because I would assume, security is obviously more in our minds than ever, because we have had data breaches and all that, and I'm sure there's more security things happening that we don't hear about in the news. So, but, your book, it seems to be a good start. Any other resources where developers can say, I would like to know some of these patterns?
Yeah, well, I think, I don't know about so many other resources that presents the patterns with this, from this perspective other than our book. But otherwise, it would be to look into the concept of application security, I would say. So things like looking at OWASP guidelines, and so how to actually build software that is secure rather than focusing on how to hack software.
Yeah, okay. You talk about hacking. We just had a hackathon, but we really actually tried to hack the system. So we encouraged, it was like a bounty program that we initiated within our company where we encouraged our developers to find security holes, and then they got rewarded as well. Obviously, they were not allowed to find security holes in their own code because they would be too easy. Now, to round it up maybe, can you share maybe one pattern a little bit more in detail? Not to cover too much of your book, but maybe one pattern where you say this is something every developer should know.
Okay, I guess we can bring up the concept of a domain primitive, maybe.
Yes.
Okay, so the concept of a domain primitive is actually the original idea maybe found in domain-driven design, and that's something we call a value object. A value object only cares about its value. For instance, a $100 bill, $100 is $100. You don't care which $100 bill you got. But the concept of a domain primitive is something that is that adds restrictions to this value object, saying like this also needs to be valid within the context it resides. This means that if it's able to create it, it must be valid also. So an example would be, I guess, colors. If you say, I only accept the color red, well, it can't be nuances of red. It has to be a particular kind of red that's accepted. And if you're able to create that color object, you know that input is going to be fine.
Exactly. So if you have this as a code construct in your code and you start using those instead of maybe language primitives, then you know that the input is valid, so you don't have to write checks all the time. And it's also going to be a lot harder to inject bad data because you've just designed your code to never accept it. So that's I guess is a short tip.
So this sort of prevents a lot of injection attacks. The thing is that it also makes what we do is that we shrink the attack vector in such a way that if you're able to find an exploit that's within the boundaries of acceptable data, well, that still exists. But as soon as it's outside of that acceptable data, well, it's going to be rejected by design.
So, and I guess the focus is here, you're not focusing on preventing, let's say, a cross-site scripting attack. You're focusing on what's valid in our business domain. Yeah. What should the system do, and we shouldn't handle anything that is not valid.
Yeah, and these validations can obviously be done either in code, on the database level, I mean, in all sorts of levels in your architecture, I guess, right?
Yes. And that's also something we talk about. We call it security in depth, which is a very common part of the security field. And secure by design is something that really promotes security in depth. You have different layers of security, making it harder and harder to breach your system.
Cool. Okay. Hey, thank you so much for the insight. It seems, we have to keep an eye up on the book. Yeah. How can people follow you, maybe on Twitter or LinkedIn?
Yeah, we're on Twitter. Daniel Sawano is my Twitter handle, and Daniel Deogun is yours.
Yes.
And the book is called Secure by Design. It's going to probably be out in this winter 2018.
Perfect. So we'll link also on the podcast page to your Twitter account so people can keep an eye out on that.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.